But first, let's get to this important story. In the case of Nicola Bulley, Lancashire police are under fire after revealing that the missing mother of two's struggles with alcohol and perimenopausal issues were made so publicly. Information Commissioner John Edwards says he will challenge the police force on the necessity of revealing such details in the future. In a statement, he followed up by saying, data protection law exists to ensure people's personal information is used properly and fairly. This includes ensuring personal details are not disclosed inappropriately. So it begs the question, have the police failed Nicola Bulley? Joining me to discuss this is former Scotland Yard Superintendent Nusrit Mehtab. And Nusrit, thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Mark. Thank you.
Have the police let this woman down?
I think in terms of releasing her personal medical confidential information, I would say yes, because as a senior investigating officer, you can release information if it's relevant and it assists in finding that person. I would say that releasing her private medical information, the fact that she's got difficulties with alcohol, the menopause, and the fact that she's got mental health issues, doesn't progress the investigation and it doesn't help find Nicola. And actually, what's happened is that it's almost had a negative effect in that there's been so much attention on how they've handled the case that they really haven't got far in the investigation. And I fear that they're losing the public. The police need the public to find information and to find Nicola.
Nusrit, if this poor woman did have an issue with drugs or perimenopausal symptoms, wouldn't that shape the nature of the investigation? Isn't it therefore important information?
Well, it's alcohol. Is the information relevant to finding her? And that's the difference. And the operative word being relative, because I don't think it's important, that information that she was suffering from, or she was perimenopausal, that she had significant difficulties with alcohol, will result in finding her. Releasing CCTV image of her is useful. Identifying people that have seen her is useful. And I can't really see how 3 weeks into the investigation, this information now becomes relevant when they've actually known about this information, back on the 27th of January. And if it was relevant and it was going to assist in finding her, then they would have, in 3 weeks, they would have found her or found some form of clue.
Nusrit, is this announcement of this woman's medical information the police creating a smokescreen, covering their backsides slightly? Is this a distraction or PR?
I've heard it said it's a distraction, but, we've got to look at what's happening with the investigation, and we can only speculate. They're really trying their best. There's a team of detectives working really hard. What's distracting is the release of this information, because that's taken the focus off. What needs to happen is the focus needs to come back to the investigation, and everybody needs to work together to find her.
Are the media helping or hindering, Nusrit?
Well, I would say that there's certain aspects. It's not so much that the media. This case is extraordinary, and it's received more interest than any other missing person case that I know of. I mean, considering there's 150,000 missing people a week, but they don't get this extent of media attention. So I think that her family, friends and the media have really kept this in the news. But if you're asking me what the distraction is to this investigation, and I would say it's the poor policing communication strategy and the release of this data, because that's totally, I think, derailed the investigation, and also, turned certain groups almost against the police in helping finding her, because women's groups are all up in arms, because what they've done in this investigation by using the menopause as a form of her disappearance and her problems with alcohol, is that, it's almost encouraging that victim blaming, fueling victim blaming, really, if you like. And people are getting fatigued now, whereas before all this happened, they could relate to the fact that Nicola was a mother dropping her children off to school, walking the dog. How many people can relate to that? That could be them. All of a sudden now there's a negative aspect, and people will detach themselves from this investigation because they're getting exhausted.
Indeed. Is it also unfair on the police, Nusrit? Are they being unfairly characterised as having messed this one up? But you know the pressure they're under, and I'm sure they're pulling out all the stops to find this woman.
Yeah, I mean, this whole negativity around it, don't forget that there's people working relentlessly behind the scenes to find Nicola. There's a whole policing team, so many resources. And with this negativity, they are human beings and they will get demoralised as well because they are doing their best. I mean, the focus when the briefing was done on the superintendent, what she was wearing, she was wearing a cocktail dress. She looked like she was going to Love Island. How is that even relevant? And, that is so demoralising for somebody that's a professional, trying to be professional, trying to do a really good job.
Absolutely. So,
yes, I think that everybody needs to be aware that this is going to have a negative impact on her and the team.
Demoralising and sexist. My deep thanks for your time. That was Nusrit Mehtab, who's a former Scotland Yard superintendent.